Board of Supervisors from April 9th, 2024 meeting. And the first, we have 4 of our 6 supervisors here. Mr. Thomas is not going to make it, and I have not heard from Mr. Florin. So I'm not sure if you heard from him at all. Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and get right into it. So we'll go into agenda item number 1, which is the discussion of the proposed fiscal budget for the 2024 to 25.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to mention a few things before I turn it over to Ms. Morgan. It's definitely going to be a collective effort tonight. Just wanted to mention, as the board is aware, we did increase the real estate tax rate by 1 cent, to 78 cents, $400 assessed value. So that gives you about another approximately $334,000 of new revenue. And since tax rates are adopted on a calendar year, the new rate will first take effect with the June 24 real estate bills. The public hearing on the proposed budget will be held on May 13th. Remember, that's a Monday, not the typical Tuesday. We moved the meeting from May 14th to May 13th. You cannot adopt the budget that same night. You have to wait at least 7 days. So the earliest you'll be able to adopt is the May 28th meeting, unless you call a special meeting. And that's what I had as far as opening comments. And I think Ms. Morgan has a few things she wanted to say before we got into comments and questions from the board. Ms. Morgan.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. Just a recap of the proposed budget. The proposed fiscal year 24-25 total budget is increasing $21 million. That is inclusive of the CIP and items as such in all funds. The proposed fiscal year 24-25 general budget is increasing the $6,024,561 to $70,902,545. The 1 cent increase that was approved at the last meeting was just strictly applied as a reduction to the transfer from unrestricted fund balance. And I have just done that to fill and complete and ensure that we have a balanced budget. I will move that wherever you guys deem necessary. Originally, it was presented as $2,276,588. However, with that 1 cent real estate increase, that has now decreased to $1,914,679. The budget as it stands and is proposed includes 16 new positions. If you recall from the presentation, that was 17. However, one of those new positions was approved at the last meeting for the drug exchange paramedic. The increase to school operations is proposed at $834,662, and that leaves an unbalanced amount of $2,450,718. However, I did place on the table, based on what the state calc tool has been updated for the March 25th item, and that was updated with the General Assembly adoptions. And it appears, just from comparison to what the school had provided at our last joint session, that there's an additional $900,000 of state funds to the schools. However, I have not been able to verify that with Mrs. Stevens. So we'll be in communications in regards to that. All other increases in the budget, of course, there's the salary increases, both for our public safety pay plan as well as the McGrath pay plan study recommendations are included within the budget, and those items are included with the additional monies for benefits. As Mr. Parton had stated, with the real estate increase of the 1 cent to the 78 cents, the proposed amount for real estate revenue will increase to $30,906,904, and that is included in your printed document that you have received, as well as the current document that's uploaded on the website. Personal property revenue was also increased, and this has now been inclusive of the increase that Mr. Cully shared on the 4/9/24 meeting that we had. So that increase was about a little over $2 million. So that was what covered the 5 cents that we would have received as well. That was originally being proposed as the 6 cents. I have all the CIP numbers available. The CIP for schools is inclusive of the HVAC renovation and will be updated to include all numbers from the project that was approved as well. I have all the spreadsheets up if you would like to make any changes, as well as I have the pay plan that's been included. All of that information I have ready to load for your discussion. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. I will now turn it over to the Board of Supervisors. We'll start Mr. Underwood. Do you have any questions or desires for the budget that?
Yeah, I have a couple issues.
Okay.
My first issue is that we're talking about a pay plan that comes later, but it's inclusive in the budget without any discussion by this board. We've had this for literally a few weeks to go over this, to look at this. This pay plan has been in progress for 3 years. And then you come and people are upset because they heard numbers based on what was being told to them, and now the numbers are different. So you're getting calls from people saying, well, what happened? I don't know.
Okay, so do we want to, just out of curiosity, do we want to move the agenda item number 2 to number 1 then? Or?
That would be my suggestion first.
Okay.
It's in the budget. How can you put something in the budget that hasn't been discussed?
Do you want to amend the agenda then?
I don't think you have to amend that. I think you say, we'll just do item number 2 first.
All right, so
I think that would be appropriate.
All right, let's go ahead and do number 2 first then.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Parton or?
Yeah, so the proposed budget includes, as Morgan said, $839,568 to implement the results of the pay study. I mean, it was never our intention. The process all along was going to be to discuss it, and again, the budget's not going to be adopted until May 28th at the earliest. So we thought there would be discussion, and we never expected it to be approved tonight. So I don't know if you want me to walk through how we put it together, or
you could give us
questions.
You could just give us a background if that's okay with everyone.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So implementing the study is intended to accomplish 2 goals. One is to create a new pay plan that keeps us competitive with the market when we're hiring new employees. And then the second goal is to make needed salary increases for current employees to help, again, keep pace with the market and encourage long-term employment. I will say these studies are always complicated. They take a lot of time and effort to complete. It's always been our experience going back to the 17 study that what the consultants put forth has to be vetted and changed many times before you get to the point where you end up with what you consider to be a satisfactory product. So the way it works under the proposal, there would be 2 steps that would happen in July, and then a step that would happen in January. In July, we would implement the new pay scale, and that puts us with grades B through Z. It's a letter system, and then has 25 steps per grade. Now we have grades 3 through 34, I believe, and we don't have steps. We have a minimum, a midpoint, and a maximum. So also in July, current employees would receive a 3% cost of living increase if based on their current salary. And then what we would do is place them on the new pay plan at the step closest to, but not less than their new salary, which again would include a 3% COLA. And then in January, we would move employees up the new scale by 1 step for every 2 years of experience that they have in their current position. So many employees will see what I would consider to be good raises by the time all those steps are implemented. Now we are, the amount of raises for some employees will be limited because we cap them at either step 10 or step 15, even if their years of experience would justify a higher step, and we did that as a cost savings mechanism. We would certainly recommend that you go with step 15 since it's only $51,000 more than capping it at step 10. Now this is where the confusion comes in, as was mentioned in the memorandum, we did have a problem with the study, as recommended by the consultant. We realized in, I think it was late February, that the new scale that she had come up with was simply way too high. I don't know how else to put it. The minimum salaries that were recommended were higher than the average of the comparison localities, and that was Fredericksburg, Orange, Dinwiddie, Goochland, Hanover, King George, Powhatan, Spotsylvania, and Stafford by significant amounts in some cases. And that was true for multiple positions up and down the pay grades, and we included some examples of that in the memorandum. And in some cases, the recommended minimum salaries were higher than the minimum starting salaries in Spotsylvania and Stafford and Hanover for the same positions. And we've always recognized that we certainly need to include those localities when we do pay studies because we compete with them, but they would be blended in with others, and certainly we were not of a mind that we can't afford to match their salaries dollar for dollar because they're obviously much larger and have a much bigger revenue source. So we couldn't, in good conscience, bring their recommendations to the board. It simply wasn't what we consider to be a realistic plan for Caroline County. And I think some of that information got out. Unfortunately, it wasn't intended to get out. This is a pay study is a working document. You end up with all kind of different permutations before you get to a final result. And we felt like it was important to include a number in the budget to implement the pay study because it had been going on long enough as it was. And again, the intent was to have discussion and end up with the finished product. We certainly weren't expecting you to adopt it the first time you saw it. So Mr. Cully, Mrs. Morgan, Pam Smith, our HR manager, and myself, we made the decision to work with the plan, take the consultant's framework, and to the fullest extent possible, and try to tweak it and come up with what we felt comfortable with as a good plan rather than try to do a complete overhaul. And we spent a lot of time doing that and checking the salaries, the most up-to-date information with the comparison localities, and we came up with the proposed plan that is before you. I will say it's certainly not perfect. There are still some flaws to work through. Department heads have pointed out some issues that they see, as well as constitutional officers, and we're working through those issues and probably will have some additional adjustments to recommend. But again, no pay study is ever perfect, but we believe in the end it will contain contains solid recommendations that will help to achieve the two objectives that I mentioned at the beginning of my comments.
My only concern, then I'll turn it over to the board. My only concern is, from what I've seen here in the memorandum, is we paid a consultant quite a bit of money to do this, and then in the end, some of the stuff is completely out of it. So, how's that?
Well, we're withholding $10,000. We do have that. I mean, it wasn't a lack of effort or a lack of work or data analysis. I mean, how she came up with those final results, I can sit here and tell you, I completely understand that.
Because of course, how much what was the total cost of that study?
50-some thousand, if I remember.
But I guess I'm getting at is if we're spending $50,000 on someone and then staff is having to go back and rework everything, I don't think that's I guess we'll have to consider that in the future. Mr. Underwood,
I wouldn't say that we threw it out entirely. We used the base.
I was just wondering if you had any questions.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So Mr. Park, when did they start doing the pay study?
I don't have an exact time, Mr. Underwood.
Give me a
Probably
guesstimation.
2 years ago.
What's that?
Probably 2 years ago.
You sure it's not 3 years?
I don't think it's been 3 years, but
Would you check for me a second? You say that this was vetted. Vetted by whom? And can you explain to me why there was no update to the board as you move forward? How can you go out and say we vetted it with department heads or anybody else, and you not speak to the board to say this is what it's looking like? What was the rationale?
I can only say, Mr. Underwood, that that's not how we did it in the past. We presented a finished recommended product and then took any comments from the board. That's the way it's been done every time that I've ever been involved in a case study. That's really all I can say regarding that.
To be honest, Mr. Hunter, I don't remember anyone ever come to us before it was finished. I mean, I understand we've got to look at it before the budget, but I don't remember halfway through someone coming to us and said, hey, look, this is.
So we accept paying somebody $50,000 for 2.5 years to get a product to us, and we have no questions. That speaks to our leadership. It doesn't speak well.
Mr. Seeley?
I'm looking at single points, single numbers. I guess this is the new study numbers.
That is correct. That is what is being proposed.
So how does this compare to where we're at now?
So do you mean as in regards to starting salary or?
Just every salary that's on here, we're paying somebody, correct?
That is correct.
And in the past, as I recall, we would get sort of a matrix of who in what these, I mean, because take any one of these, there's multiple there's multiple positions underneath the one salary. And so what I remember is we had numbers in these boxes for how many for each one of these positions.
Okay.
And we knew what that position was currently. See, I can't compare this to anything because I'm looking at one solid number on a progressive scale.
Okay.
I don't know how many people there are or where they're at. I don't know what those salaries are at that point. And so I'm looking at this going, some of these categories are people heavy. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of people and some of these are probably not many people. And so, and I think the other thing that we haven't taken into consideration that I think we need to look at is licensures. Because we are moving into a time where everybody's got to have a license for something. And what does that mean? Because for a wastewater operator, water treatment operator, or IT certifications. So how do we account for those kinds of things in the pay study? Because you can take two water plant operators, one has a license, one doesn't. Do you pay them both the same? One's got a license, one doesn't? Do we look at that? And we're moving into a time where there's a license or a certification or something for everything. And so what do we do for those folks when they have that? But I can't make any determination from looking at it's a flat sheet of paper with a lot of numbers on it. And I don't have any way of making any sort of equation to people and amounts and where we're going. Is it even across? How many people are we stepping on? Because if we're stepping on somebody further up and it's somebody in another category who's got more years, but this person is now, we need to look at that matrix of what that means.
Okay.
So that we can, because the minute we adopt something, we're going to have a lot of people out of whack and our phones are all going to ring. They're going to go, so-and-so's been here 5 years and they make $4,000 more than me a year according to the pay scale. I'll say that could be, but I have no way of knowing that. So we're going to have to look at a matrix somehow of this, of what those competings are. and I don't know if this is alphabetical or however you've laid, I don't know that this layout is conducive to that. Is there a better way to lay this out to make comparison? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
What I could do is I can take this format and just utilize the way it is and take and create a column that is beside each of the job titles and provide for you what the range is for that position, if that is what you desire.
Shouldn't we place them underneath the step? Or how many? See, here's what I don't know. We've got 32 steps right now, is what I read, right?
Yeah.
And we're compressing that to some smaller number.
Absolutely.
So when you do that, you compress people in those categories as well, because it's not a number, it's somebody's salary in somebody's category. So what does that do to folks across the scale? And I would take one of these randomly and show us what happens when you go from 32 steps to what are we going to 15? Where are we hoping to end up?
So that was one of the problems that we did discuss amongst the team, that there was a problem in regards to how many grades we had. And there were several conversations back and forth with the contractor, the vendor, who was actually selected for this, in regards to how it would affect the employees in regards to sort of lumping them together based on what you're speaking of. So this was what she has suggested is done as common practice, the reduction of the grades to what we have here. And she did consider the licensure and items in regards to that.
So what you have up there and what we're looking at are different? Because that's only got 13 steps. I've got 20.
I've expanded it for size, for viewing.
Okay.
Mrs. Long.
I'm just making sure that we're not looking at two different things.
Absolutely not. This is the same.
That's all I'm making sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But I think you could put the number on a line and then take like groundskeeper, control room operator, permit technician, front counter associate, office assistant part-time, and utilities technician. You could actually put the number above and then put the number of those folks in.
Yes, sir.
So we could, and where they fall in this, either, and I don't know if to put it, if you put it where their old is or where their new is, that's what I struggle with. What's the best way to look at that? You may have a better idea than me.
Okay, so are you concerned with the individual employees or the category, like the job title itself? So if we had 5 operators, are you concerned with the operators or each of the individual operators?
Here's what I'm looking at. If you have 5 operators and there's 2 years between each one of them when they were hired in their longevity.
Okay.
Okay. And we now compress the pay scale.
Okay.
What does that do to those 5 operators if, for example, there's 2 years between each one of them?
Okay.
What does that really mean? Do 2 of them end up, or do 2 pairs end up in the same step and another one on a step somewhere else? And is there anything for those with licenses?
What I will share in response to that is the thought process in regards to where they are and the step placement for each of the employees is that for all the employees, the same scenario where there are 5 operators. Phase 2 of this will put them on the step that's closest to their salary. So I'll give you an example. If an employee has currently been here for 5 years, they would have gotten the raises throughout those 5 years. And assumably, they should have been paid more than the person who came 2 years ago. So when they get placed on the actual step that they would go to, their raise and the step that they would be at would already be accounted for in the longevity that they've been here. However, then for phase 3 and 4, you would give them additional steps for their longevity in that position. Therefore, the person who's been here for 5 years would receive 2 additional steps. The person that's been here for 2 years would only receive 1 additional steps. So that's considering the longevity of how long they have been here. As Mr. Parton stated when he originally started the presentation, we did calculate up to a step 20, and if we did not max anything out, so there's the availability to do that as well, if you so desire. So there's availability to put everyone to the place that they should be regarding their tenure here.
See, but I don't have any way of determining
Right
that.
now, it's only 15, right? It's only gonna be 15.
It would be, yeah,
Yeah,
15.
So you could go 20 then, right?
Right.
But that would be,
It would be more money.
yeah, it'd be more
Right.
money.
Mr.
And-
Shealy, I don't know if this helps at all, but for wastewater operators, and I think water operators as well, Joey could help me out here. I mean, we have various classifications based on the licensure. One, 4 being the lowest, I believe, and then, well, let's get that mixed up. I think 4 is the lowest, and then 3, 2, I don't think we have a 1 because training, training, 4, 3, 2. Yeah, so as you get licenses in that particular category, you move up, and obviously, I think there's at least a grade separation, if not more, between each of those license points.
I'm just looking for who's gonna get stepped on where when we do this. And I don't know, looking at this, I can't tell you anything. It's just a bunch of numbers and there's no number of employees, there's no where they're currently at. All we're seeing is big numbers. This is what it costs to implement, and I don't even know what that means.
Okay, there was a file that I sent out.
I read it.
Okay, and then it had tabs at the bottom for each department, for each individual employee. I understand that's not what you're exactly asking for now. However, that may be something that will be of assistance. So I'm just wondering if you want me to elaborate more on that file or if you'd like me to elaborate more on this one.
I don't have a good answer for you. I'll just
Okay.
sit down,
Can we talk?
yeah, and
Okay.
look at what we have, because when I looked at the tabs, I didn't know, in my mind, it didn't tell me any more the way it was laid out.
Okay.
But I'll look at it again. We're looking at something for the first time. And again, I think in the past, we had numbers underneath each one of these. We knew how many employees were each category. And then I'm just trying to fit the puzzle together. And I can't do that yet.
Fair to everybody.
Okay.
Work on getting the information.
Mrs. Bauer?
Well, first, I want to thank staff for taking what they got and realizing that it did not really reflect us and working to try to make something that we could start with. I think we need to move forward on at least including the raises and results of some type in our budget. As you say, we always have a little overflow. People have been waiting for this study to come for a long time. Now, after we get through this, do we go back to these people and say, we're not going to pay you the whole amount because this really, we had to sort of redo most of your work because we don't know how you justified these numbers? I think that's a discussion for another meeting. Right now, I think we need to concentrate on what we're here for. And I am just glad to see that we're getting something done because staff's been waiting for something for us to judge salaries on. And I think we just need to continue to work at it, but also remember we've got 16 new employees in the budget, so we've got to be able to afford them too. So thank you for giving us a start. I do agree with Mr. Underwood. I think maybe the notice that went out earlier about the pay study may have been a little bit of a jump and got some employees excited or worried because they hadn't heard anything. But we can't take that back now, but we can work on making this more understandable so that we feel like it's fair to everybody before we activate it. Those are my comments.
Do we want to have, I'll have one question, do we want to have a work session just on this? I mean, because really, I mean, to answer any questions that you guys have, you can ask staff and then we can come together, for a work session on it. Because Mr. Seeley has some questions and if anyone else is just dealing with this.
If we do, Mr. Chairman, we have to do it before the 8th
But
of May.
no, May. So that,
But the public hearing is on the 13th, and then we have to.
yeah,
Can we do a work session about talking about quote employees where we're gonna have to keep it very general?
you can, yes, you can keep it general. You don't have to name the specific employee. You can say employee, yes,
Department.
yes, you can,
Okay.
yeah, they can not name.
It's by category.
Yeah, right, yeah.
How long would it take, Ms. Smith, Ms. Moore, excuse me, to determine how many folks are in what position and
We could get that taken care of tomorrow.
tomorrow?
I can have my staff work on that tomorrow.
What about finished product?
With the number of employees and the range, something as generic as that, we could have that done this week.
I also have another question, and this might be for you. Do
Yeah, because
in this study and in
Yeah, right.
this,
So
you are
like sometime
figuring out
between
are
public hearing
department heads,
between
are
public
their
hearing and
input on
and then
employees considered as far as steps go?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure, once we want to keep, get recognized.
All right, why don't we, do we want to just, we want to set up, well, we probably need to do it today as far as such a date because if we wait till the May 13th, it'd be too late. Too late. So do we want to set up a date where we can have a work session just on this?
yeah, I mean, and I need a little bit ahead of time to mark it up.
Two members.
Right. Okay. So get out the calendars. Let's see.
Let's see, our board meetings the 14th, right?
13th.
13.
13th. Why did we do that? Why did we do it Monday?
Because
I couldn't make this.
Mr. Underwood couldn't make it for on the Tuesday.
Okay.
So the 13th. So do you
It
want to do
almost has to be that week.
I'm gonna be,
do you want to do the? I cannot do the 16th. I know that. Would you like to do the 15th?
2 meetings back.
Well, or you can do the following. We could do the following week. You could do the week of the 20th. I mean, Monday the 20th to the 24th.
I'm good with right now any of those.
20th is a GWRC meeting.
Go to
No,
the
wait a minute.
21st.
21st.
27th. Is it the
No, that's
27th?
right. That's the
Ah,
21st is graduation. What about the 22nd?
I'm gonna be out.
Okay, let's try the
You don't
23rd.
need me here, that. I'm gonna be out there.
Let's try the 23rd.
Excuse me, 23rd of May is the appreciation.
Mr. Underwood has.
You have a meeting that day.
Wow. Okay.
How about
I have a community meeting.
Yeah. What about the week of May 6th through 10th?
May 6th through 10 before we have the public hearing. Okay. If you guys, are you guys okay with that?
Well, this is just for the work for the,
Yeah, just for
Study.
the work session on the study. Yeah.
yeah, so it's not dealing with taxes or budget.
Would you like to do? I mean,
The what's the 7th?
Tuesday the 7th. Is that okay with everyone? Mr. Seeley,
Doesn't ring any bells that I have anything.
Tuesday the 7th. Mrs. Long,
As far as I know, that's
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, here, same room. We'll have a work session on the pay study, and then that'll be before our, okay, that's fine.
That's before our regular board meetings.
Yep,
That way we
Yep.
can put it on the agenda.
yep. Okay, sounds good.
6 o'clock.
All right, yep,
Mr. Chairman, just so that we're clear on what's needed, can I just reiterate what
Sure.
I have written? What I have written is for each of the grades, like the number of positions, as well as what the salary would have been in the current pay plan. Is that correct, Mr. Seeley?
Where they are now and where they could go.
Yes,
Yes, because,
Okay.
I mean, we're looking at a flat,
yes, sir. And what I will do is I will work with Mrs. Smith and Mr. Parton in regards to what you received for the last pay plan to see if we can model that to any extent. But finance and HR will work together to complete this request.
is there any way, just out of curiosity, there are several employees, like when they do the pay study, they're looking at what their position, their title is, right? So for example, if they take on a responsibility, they're trying to do a comparison to, well, what's going on in Dinwiddie or what's going on in Spotsylvania Bay in their Hanover, correct?
Yes.
Is there a way to figure out how many of these employees were reclassified to?
We
You mean by, with the new steps, what do you mean by
Yeah,
classes?
in other words, like a new response, because what they're doing a lot of times, aren't they taking like a job and like they were doing this in Spotsylvania, so we are retitling them, correct? To reflect their responsibility, correct?
Yes. So we have a list of what she has proposed as what the current title is and what the new title would be based on how she is.
I'm not sure,
Like in other words, for an employee, for example, if we had them here, but now because of, we're reclassifying them as something different because they have a different responsibility similar. Is there, I mean, we changed the title, correct? Is that that's what we're doing?
She has provided new titles for those positions.
Okay, all right. Is there a way to figure that out, how many, or it doesn't?
Yes, we already have that
Okay,
readily
sure.
available on the spreadsheet.
Yep, that's fine. All right. So the 7th then?
one other question.
Yes, sir.
So how do we normalize I mean, we're never going to compete with Hanover and Spotsylvania. Probably not even Louisa. I mean,
Louisa did not respond. I will share that.
so is there a way to look at and see, she should have, the group that did this should have done this for us. And her normalized numbers, this comparison localities average, I don't know that helps us.
So the comparison localities average that is provided was provided based on staffs we spent a full week taking all of the pay plans for the localities mentioned and creating a spreadsheet of the 119 positions that we have. We looked at exactly 60 of those in comparison, and those are the ones where we took the average between all of the localities, and that's the number that you have. So you have Stafford higher on some, King William lower on some, which offsets, and that's where that locality average is coming from.
Yeah, but see, but to me, you compare, to me,
That's too high. You all came up.
to
with
me,
that
you're
one.
comparing,
We'll change it to the top.
you're comparing apples to oranges because the pay in Stafford, for example, is a higher grade or a higher rate. I'm not gonna say grade, higher rate. And then based on their revenue and their increases over the year, that increase is also included in that person's position versus a locality smaller. You're already starting off with a smaller number at the beginning. And then, and this is why the jump occurs, is because your increase is not the same. A 10% increase on a $40,000 salary versus a 10% increase on a $60,000, already there's a disparity. There's still 10%, but the number goes, and when you look at the raw number, you're already starting at a deficit that you're trying to normalize in the pay study. That's a fallacy.
So would you say that we should not have used Stafford in those averages?
I'm just
were
using
there
that as an
other?
example,
Okay.
not as, I'm not sure what this expert should have used. That should be their field. They should have looked at the nuances between the counties that the positions that they looked at in this study. They should have looked at other variables to rationalize how I get to this for Caroline County. Because that means you increase a position, let's say 20%, because they've increased 3% greater than we have over the years, and now we're trying to normalize it. You can't do that. You can't go back and pull that over time. That's not how you do a pay study. I'm sorry. But this is not how you do it.
So can I ask you a question, Mr. Underwood? I guess in all the ones, it's my understanding, in all the ones that I've ever seen when the schools come to us or when we've done them in the past, is whatever you, and maybe the sheriff's department, maybe I'm wrong on this, but when you guys did yours or you do one, you look what a deputy makes in Spotsylvania, what a deputy makes in King William, what a deputy makes in Dinwiddie, what a deputy makes in wherever, right? And then you come up with an aggregate. Is that correct? You come up with some sort of average and see where Caroline should fall into that, correct?
Try to compare counties that are equal to us.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, and I get
Look
that.
at the counties who were losing people too.
Right. Yeah, but you have to look at people like you're not going to be losing someone to. You're probably not losing someone to King George. Maybe, but I mean, you're probably losing to Spotsylvania and Hanover. You have to be somewhat. You're probably not going to be equal to Spotsylvania and Hanover, but you have to be at least somewhat competitive. To because you're going to lose employees to those. It's the same thing with. I don't think we're worried about in any skilled job. I don't think we're worried about losing employees to the smaller jurisdictions. I think we're worried about, and I understand we're not going to match Spotsylvania. We know Spotsylvania's get more resources. We know Hanover's get more resources. But at the same time, we can't, if we're going to hold on to employees, we have to at least be competitive. And that's what you try to do, correct?
Right.
So, all right.
And that's why we tried to blend in the larger localities with localities that are more like us. Going back before 2017, we tried to do it without including Spotsylvania, Stafford, or Hanover, and it just didn't work because, again, if we do lose a lot of employees to those localities, the idea is to blend it in, but recognizing you can't match their salaries, but you take it into the overall average of what you come up with.
Okay. All right. So we will have the. Sorry. Is everyone okay with the work session on the 7th?
Yes.
Okay. So Tuesday the 7th work session. Let's go back to agenda item number 1. Yes, no problem. Discussion of the fiscal year 2024-25 budget. Mr. Underwood, did you want to start off? Or?
Sure, I'll be glad to. Mr. Parker, Ms. Morgan, looking at revenue streams based on the budget that we have here, do you see any, based on where we are and how things are looking in the economy, do we see anything that appears to be a bump for us, either a negative or a positive? Are there any things that are within our budget that a department may need or a department that we have not looked at? I mean, I've gone over this, and I do have some questions about the budget because we continue to increase our spending. therefore our expenditures go up as our revenue goes up. So we're not really, and we still are actually managing to save money, which is good. And second issue is within this budget, within our departments, we have several single points of failure that I'd like to talk about, looking at additional positions to ensure that we don't have people who are about to retire. We have no people behind them. If we do have revenue, then should we not look at adding several positions within a budget? Maybe not this one, but certainly I think that should be a priority. I guess that's kind of twofold in terms of revenue coming versus any great expenditures that we see. I know we have the fire stations that we need and are coming, but are there anything else that we really see that could?
Can I ask that question a different way for you?
Yes.
If you look at expenditures, which we can track, correct?
That is correct.
If you look at expenditures in March, over last March, over the March before, what is our trend? Because I think that's what you're looking for. I'm looking for a data point, and we probably have our expenditures for March when we're done with April. So I'm looking for a month where all the firefighters were online. We haven't made any new debt service payments, correct? For
That's
like
correct.
the new fire station. So there's,
We've been making those because if you recall, that money had been acquired prior to the completion of the Carmel Church fire station.
okay, so is there a way to look at debt service payments above for the last 2 or 3 years at some line in the sand to see what the increases in those are?
We can definitely look at that.
Because what I'm hearing is we're trying to figure out where was the line and where is our, and that's why I'm going back 2 or 3 years, is sort of a line in the sand to look at the progression at the same period each year in cost. And I don't mean just personnel cost in general, because we're paying more for fuel, we're paying more for everything else we're buying. So if we look at, and you may have that, I don't know, but that's what I think has been weighing on all of us, because we don't have a good handle on where we are.
Okay. So for this is the expenditures in regards to our debt service. I will share.
Can you enlarge that too, if possible?
I
Because I can't see that. Right, I can't see it.
So here's our I will move up for the school debt piece. So there was a refunding in fiscal year 21, so that's why that year looks a bit increased. However, what we're looking for with the running average is about 4.6 and now 4.57 for this fiscal year. So the last year's budget was the current fiscal year was about 5 million, but now we're at 4.5 for 2025.
But that's going to change.
That's going to change because of the.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So that will run about the same thing. And then for general, there are some items that are included in this year's budget that will be leased, but it's just a general interest payment for this year. However, there was 4.5, 5.5, 3.8, and now this is actual principal for some of those loans that we had. So we're now at 4.6 million for interest. For our debt service for general. It's about $800,000 increase.
Is there, he was asking for point in time on expenditures. Do we have a point in time for like revenues too, as far as?
Yeah.
Currently, we have December.
December.
Yes. It is my goal to bring the second quarter, as well as the treasurer and I we speak weekly in regards to her goal is to have the third quarter completed also. So the goal is to bring that to you guys on the May 28th meeting.
And that'll be in comparison to the previous year too?
That is.
Yeah, okay. Is it a good trend? Is it a positive trend? Or?
Well, I've only looked at the expenditures and I can only see them going up.
Okay, yeah, right, okay.
I can't speak here regarding
You have the first quarter of this fiscal year.
That is correct.
And so if we compare first quarter, I mean, how did that, we do the basically July through October.
Yes.
Did we see a trend up? Yes. Did we see a trend upward from the previous year?
We did from the previous year. And that was in the real estate, of course, and then real estate, personal property, BPO, all of our revenue sections, they were up.
Okay.
But here's our dilemma.
Yes,
We added the firefighting position starting in December of last year.
Yes.
Last year.
So what I'm trying to figure out is that shift, what is that personnel increase cost?
Okay.
Because we can look at, revenues are all up, but our cost to offset that is also going up. So where do we?
You need both numbers.
Yep.
But she's not going to be able, are you going to be able to have?
Yeah, she said December. She said she'll have December.
That's just October, November. That's the first quarter.
That's the second. No, she'll have the second quarter.
The treasurer has shared with me that she will have the third quarter as well. So January, February, March complete. And so that will be in my second and third quarter presentation. However, you won't receive that until May 28th. That will be in that presentation.
Okay.
I can give you a second quarter presentation on the 13th.
We usually only have the first half of the year though. When you
Yeah, but I'm just looking. What I'm really looking for is how much are our expenditures up? Pick a month. I picked March because it's past.
Okay.
Can we look at expenditures year to date for March for the last 3 years?
Yes, we can.
Because I think that will at least give us some idea of a trend.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to be fair. I mean, I'm not arguing that there's not more real estate, there's not more personal property, but I had a tremendous number of people. And with that comes a multitude of other things.
Okay.
And I think that, it's all good information to look at. I was just saying, well, we can't raise taxes, so if it doesn't look good, we got to find someplace else to cut.
No, but now is the time to take a look at that and not.
We got to find someplace else to cut. So we got to think about that too.
I think that, yeah. I don't think we're going to have to worry about cutting the way the trends are going, but yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So I think that just justifies what we do when the trend shows what and where we need to be going and what we need to be thinking about. This is really the GPS for moving forward as we look at additional expenditures for fire station in Sparta, fire station in Port Royal, new fire station in Bowling Green, or latest. Because they're going to come.
Yeah.
So we have to, so this helps us in terms of making sure that we're planning for what's coming and not wait till it hits us, but we have a plan to ensure that we're fiscally sound.
And the other thing that Mr. Underwood brought up 2 meetings ago is looking at our policy for what's in the fund balance. Because the percentage that we have is not, we are beyond that because bond counsel is telling us we've got to be much higher than we anticipate. So we need to know kind of where our policy needs to change with that, because these numbers are going to drive that. Because our budget contains numbers from the unencumbered balance. And if we end up in it, we need to understand what the percentage really needs to be for bond counsel and where we are in that budget. When we pass the budget, how much we're into, where does that put us in the scheme of that?
Okay. Um, we did have Davenport to look at our policies and compare them to like size localities. I can send that out to you guys for discussion if you would like to see that. And Courtney has been offered if we needed him to come to a work session to discuss it, or how you would like to handle it.
After budget, but
Okay.
is he realizes that we're looking at, we keep a higher fund balance because we've been told to keep a higher fund
Yes.
balance.
Yes.
And he understands that percentage needs to be in policy, so we're not so far below, he goes, oh, that's ridiculous, you're way below. But when he stands up and goes, because of your real estate value, because of the debt to population, they want to see this number, and I'd like to see where that's really at.
Okay.
And then the other thing too would be nice to piggyback on that. It'd be nice to, because we always hear about our fund balance, and that the other stuff is not great for us. What is a plan going forward to how we can tackle that other stuff? So I'm not saying you always want a comfortable fund balance, but maybe we need less of a fund balance where if we can start, the other things that go into your bond rating, what can we do to rectify some of those problems that we have?
Okay. I will give you two examples. One, of course, would be the amount of debt that we carry. So we need to pay some of that debt off, which if you're considering utilizing the fund balance for that, that would be one option. Of course, I will not speak to that.
Right.
Courtney would have to, speak on that. And the other item that is not of our control is the amount of rooftops and businesses and real estate that's within the county. That is a driver that we're a little bit weak on.
And that's going to start to change too.
Absolutely.
With ladies from Grove.
We just need some time for that.
Well, and the other thing that was pointed out to us, we have 3,800 acres zoned industrial, and only 800 is currently being utilized.
Right.
Every time we zone something different, we end up with a bigger deficit in our industrial base because they don't build right away, which is hurting us in a lot of different factors.
Okay. All right, Mr. Underwood, do you have anything else?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Seeley?
No, I don't know what else we can talk about. I think we need to get some fresh numbers from a new angle.
Mrs. Long?
No, I'm pleased with where we're going and the plan moving forward for the work session.
Okay, I do have a couple that I just have some questions on. Mr. Parton, if you look on, just someone take me through, I went through some of the areas, I was looking at percent increases, the county administration, 23, county administration, I see we're up 37% on that, and it seemed to be a higher number than many of the other departments, and I was just kind of curious as to what the reason for that was. Page number 23.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, that increase is because with the promotion to Deputy County Administrator, that my position is now split 50-50 between County Administrator and Finance. So half of my salary is in the County Administration.
Okay.
Tab. So you will see an increase there, but a reduction in finance.
Okay, so that's all right. I did not know that. Okay, well that solves that issue. The other thing too is this is kind of more something smaller, and I know for the board we have the charity organizations that we give to. Thurman Brisbane's on what page? I'd ask Mr. Parton today about they came to us.
50?
Page 50. If you remember, they came to us at a board meeting and spoke to us. They've come to George Washington Regional Commission before. So yeah, they do come to us every year. And the way it works right now, someone who is just give you a little background on this is if someone is homeless and seeking help, there's continuum of care, and a lot of times they're going through what's the organization up in
RAAA.
No. Micah Ministries, and Micah Ministries does a great job in that they take everyone in. My concern is sometimes you take everyone in, you have someone who is Thurman Briston's model for homelessness is, as he presented to us when he came to us, their model for homelessness is they don't want, say, someone who is a family, a mom and kids, maybe next to someone in a shelter that's maybe a drug addict. And Thurman Brisbane, because they have that model, they're not actually eligible for certain federal grants because they are more selective in who they take into their homeless shelters. And with that, so they've had actually, Thurman Brisbane has actually had reduced amounts of federal money coming in. And these are people that serve Caroline County. And I just would like to see that number go up. But yeah, so they do service Caroline, and they are more selective. But in that case, you're not going to have the mother with a family next to the person who may be addicted to drugs. So where you get with that could easily happen with Micah Ministries. They have been to George Washington Regional Commission several times to discuss their issue. And federal funding for them is drying up because they are more selective. So, do you guys have an opinion or?
Mr. Black, I'm going to say that I spent some time talking to the Brisbane folks, and the director actually lives in Caroline. He actually lives in Register. And some of the stories that he related to me in terms of they want to get people back on their feet, just not keep them in a shelter.
That's their model, yeah.
And I really do agree with the model and what they're trying to do. And I would not be opposed to giving them an additional 10,000. The number of folks they help in Caroline, it still only works out to about, $150 or $200 a family.
Could we make it, because we're doing 13,339, can we make it an even 25? So it would be like an additional 11.
Let's go with the 10.
So it's the difference between 23 and 25 months.
Make it an even number for accounting so that we're
25. Can we just do 25?
25 is, I'm good with that. But
Mr. Sealer, is that a motion?
I don't know, but can we do a motion in a work session per se?
They've done it in the past.
Well, I don't know. I think we
It's a
should.
continuation of our last meeting.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. I really do believe that is an organization that helps families and individuals, but it's particularly helpful for families that are really stranded, and they do try to put them back into life, not into another shelter. So
Second that motion.
All right,
We just keep a running tab of the changes and then.
Yes, I was just making the change.
Rather do a motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got it.
I think there's consensus here. Yeah, there's consensus here. And my only other one, of course, is Mr. Underwood Lovesmith. Is I'm always, I've got to think for the schools. And what would we give for the schools last year? What was our for operating?
Why you call my name?
Because we agree on this so much.
what's the addition from the state for schools that we know?
Yeah, that's a good point too.
What's the addition?
I will just share that I pulled this off the website. Mrs. Stevens and I did not have any conversations on this, so I just be speaking based on what's there versus what they had provided at the last meeting. So based on the General Assembly adopted budget, of course, the governor has not adopted the budget, the 2025 projected unadjusted ADM, the state share is $41,784,505. And in comparison to what was provided at our last joint board meeting, $40,709,747, so about $1,075,000 increase.
And that increases our payment that's required.
The majority of the increase is seen in the standards of quality programs for basic aid and things of that sort. But as Mrs. Stevens has shared, would not include the non-SOQ positions, of course.
Okay. Mrs. Stevens, do you have anything to?
Based on that, with the governor, we're hearing that the at-risk funding, and that was a large portion of the increase, not necessarily going to come through the General Assembly when they reconvene. They are sticking and keeping their hat of the 3% increase, which is approximately 600 and some thousand additional income with that. But the at-risk, we are not hanging our hat on right now at this point because we do not think we'll be in the plan.
And if you look on the sheet that was provided, the at-risk amount that they would you consider moving the full amount, the $3 million?
They're the larger.
Okay, all right. So there's $3,384,021 in the at-risk bucket.
All right, move on. So the at-risk budget, can you ask, what does the at-risk budget mean? I mean, I'm just.
It's really a pot of funding that's used for at-risk students, but it can be used throughout your division for reading, retention, truancy, attendance. It's a large bucket of funding that can be into areas that's funding specifically on those areas.
Is this one-time money or is this?
No.
It is not one-time funding.
It's so it'll be continuous.
It is reoccurring. We have about 1.5 million in the budget currently. Looking at this sheet, so the increase is what
Is the increase is about 900, and you can use that. Is that pretty much?
You can use it pretty much as long as you're, grabbing the different pots for reading and remediation, those items.
Program.
Absolutely, it's recurring money. It can be used to spread through over the budget. That increase is not what we're expecting for the General Assembly when we reconvene on May 13th.
Right. Okay. And can you repeat for me what was our transfer just operating to the schools last year? What did we transfer to them?
$16,693,238.
That was just for operating.
Yes.
So we transferred 1.6 million.
No.
No. I'm talking about 16 million total.
Yes.
But we did an appropriation for the year before of 600,000 and then another for this fiscal year, so it was almost $1.3 million. You went backwards to do catch up on 0 through 17, which was 600 and.
So the 14, just hold on a second. The 14 million go back to transfer operating. What under column C? What is that?
This is actual expenditures for fiscal year 21, 22, 23, and this is adopted budget for fiscal year 24, and this is proposed for fiscal year 25.
So the increase we gave them last year between the two was how much?
$1.3 million.
We gave them 1.3 last year in new money.
Yep.
Yes, and then they had to give us back. No, that was this fiscal year.
Yep.
They gave us back.
No, that was this
not much.
fiscal year 24. They gave us back the 250.
It went right back into their budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, went back to their we let them use it for
But
capital.
their increase was.
Yeah, right.
And we're proposing 834,662 this year.
Additional money, yeah. Yeah. But that, according to them, and I have it somewhere, they needed, and Marcia, and is there any plan on the at-risk money to deal anything with salaries at all? Just any programs?
It was not in the original governor's budget, so it has not been planned at this time, but of course, the number one priority of the school division is compensation.
Compensation.
There are additional positions we need, because we haven't been able to add positions, we haven't, over the past several years, so
But Mr.
But
Chairman, we
that
agree.
is priority.
We already talked about the COVID money, that we were not going to maintain those positions. Those 20-something positions that were within, because that was during COVID.
Many of those grant positions. Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm looking at salaries. I'm not necessarily talking about. I'm just looking at because I'm looking at like as far as their salaries and keeping up with other jurisdictions as far as teacher pay, not necessarily positions, because they have it in here. They have it in their positions, so they broke it out like what they need for new positions and so forth. So they have the priorities, like all the different teachers that they need, so forth.
I think what Mr. Underwood is referring to is during COVID, they had extra money and hired extra.
Right. And a
for
lot of
all
those.
those different things.
Yes.
And we don't know if they're still there or they're included.
And we didn't ask them that. How many of those positions are you keeping?
And 8 of them are class size reductions, so they are being requested in because the class sizes are so high and our numbers are going up, our enrollment is going up. There are some positions like the virtual coordinator of instruction, because we're no longer, that position is eliminating. We have a guidance counselor that is an ESSER funded, which with SOQ, we are required now to have it. With the SOQ going down to 325, we need to have that position in order to be in compliance. There was a history specialist position in there, which had moved to local funding a long time ago and pulled out of the grant. There is some program assistant positions at Lotus that had come off of the grant. So a lot of the positions have come off of the grant, have been eliminated, but there are those classroom positions that are certainly still in that grant and need it going into next year.
Here's and maybe correct me if I'm wrong. Hopefully you get the 900,000. Hopefully, we're giving you 800 right now, right? So there's 1.7. I would like to see, because if you look at this, or what they gave us, salary plus 3%, and so the teachers and the staff would get salary plus 3% in a step for 2.1. So with the 1 cent tax increase,
What pays the firefighters?
what's that?
What pays for the firefighters?
The firefighters are already, come on. I mean, to me, that would cover, correct, if this is what you gave us is correct, right?
Based on our estimates, we still have health insurance we have to handle, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm
some thousand increase.
yeah, well, we're getting slammed responsibility too. I'm getting a 5%, and I think it's all gonna be gone. I mean, I understand that. I mean, there's certain times when.
That's with the employee getting their increase, that's the employer's share. So
Right.
Caroline has been giving the employee their increase every year. We have not been holding the employee steady, so they have been paying their health insurance increase, just the employers.
Yeah. All right, I mean, I would like the board to consider giving the schools more money to at least cover the teacher's salary, that part of it, the salary plus the step. And then especially when we get new numbers, I mean, obviously tonight, you're saying you're gonna get numbers for us at the next meeting, correct? We'll have a half year's data worth information at the next meeting. Right, so I would like to see the board consider doing that, because other jurisdictions, I mean, I know our health insurance go, but other jurisdictions are doing that.
Doing what?
The 5%, which is like we're basically 3%. The 3% includes like is that the SOQ really? Is that what they're talking about right here?
The state is asking for a 3% increase.
Yeah, so that covers that second one covers that, right?
That is
So,
the
yeah.
cost of that.
Yeah, that's what I
For all
figured.
employees.
Yeah, so that's actually a 5%, right? Because
Our steps are not 2%. So our steps are.
No, but I'm looking at this part that you gave us.
Correct.
And it says 3% plus step, and that's actually 5%, correct? Because it's 2.
Our increases are not 2%. So our step increases are 1.38 in between some of the scales, 1.45.
Right.
So it would be about a 4.5% increase, not a 5%.
But Jeff,
But just
with the
Based on
money,
your step.
But hold on. This says salary plus 3% plus step.
3% plus step, and Caroline's steps range between 1.38, 1.45. So the 3% plus the 1.45 is 4.45.
Okay.
So it would not be a full 5%.
Okay. And you're saying that cost is 2.1 million?
Yeah.
All right. So I would like the board, I mean, the reality behind it is other jurisdictions are, I mean, costs are going up. So like, I think all of ours in Spotsylvania to be absorbed by insurance costs going up. But if we have made last year, we made good strides in keeping the teachers, and Mr. Thomas talks about the teachers, and that's what I'm talking about, keeping the teachers competitive with other jurisdictions. I mean, that's what we're aiming for. So I would like to see us at least do our best to make sure that our teachers and staff, bus drivers included, or whatever,
All staff would be-
staff competitive with other jurisdictions. I mean, we do it with the sheriff's office. We want to make sure they are. I think we need to do the same with our teachers. Okay. So, and the schools, you can, I mean, if you have positions or something like that, there's only so much money to go around. But the reality behind it is we need to talk about salaries first.
And that, just to clarify, that is a 3% increase on the current scales. That is not implementing our compensation study step 2.
Right. Which would be, that's the 3.6, the 3.6 million. So that would be another 1.5 in addition, yes, okay. All right, so you'll have those numbers for us? You'll have those numbers for us?
When would you like that prepared? I can have that on the 13th meeting. However, I understand that's a heavy agenda. Or I can have both the second quarter and the third quarter pending the treasurer has January through March completed for the second meeting in May.
What do you guys want? I mean, 13th is going to be a heavy meeting. Do you want the numbers? Yeah. No. She's talking about the 13th. The 13th meeting is our regular.
Yeah, our regular
it just depends
schedule.
on what you put on the presentation.
Right.
I mean,
Well, we didn't have any presentations last time. You know, do we have any?
We'll go over the agenda tomorrow if you want.
Yeah. All right. So
After the staff meeting.
I'll try to get it on. I'll try to do everything, because I think that would be good information to us on the 13th. Yeah.
when's the state doesn't meet, the general assembly doesn't meet till the 13th.
That is correct.
Our meeting's on the 12th.
13th.
13.
They won't be done by the time we start.
Yeah. Okay. Is there, yeah. And if you, I mean, you guys want to email before the meeting too? I mean, so forth. Jim?
I mean, you can't just sit down and somebody hands you a stack of paper.
Right. If you can email it, definitely as
Okay.
early as possible too. I mean, even if it's before the agenda packet goes out.
Okay, may I just recap?
Yep.
Okay, so what I will be sending out is the policy information from Davenport in regards to the fund balance. Also, expenditures, just a classification and a comparison from March of this year in regards to March for the last 3 years. So I will show March 24, 23, and March of 22. As well as I will be adding or increasing to Thurman Brisbane the 25,000, and we will prepare the second quarter report, financial status report.
Yep.
Changing the 13 something to 25,000. Not adding, changing it to 25,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Not adding it to.
Yes, ma'am.
Everything all set? What's the matter?
For now.
Yep. Anyone have anything else?
No.
All right. Yep. Mr. Seeley?
Good.
All right, so our next meeting will be the work session on the 7th.
That is correct.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and, we're gonna go ahead and recess till the, May 7th. Can I get a motion to,
Mr. Chairman, before we adjourn, can I ask you a question?
sure.
Can you tell me who put this together? Lambert did. Excellent job. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are recessed until, oh, I should say, yeah, we are recessed until the 7th.
Oh, yeah, not adjourned. Motion for recess.
Can I have a motion to,
Yeah, the motion should be for recess.
Adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
yes,
Let me recess. I'll change my motion to recess till
And I'll change my
May
second.
6th.
okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are recessed till May 7th.
Aye.